What if Rust got a sequel? What would that look like, play like, and would you even want it? Well, those first two questions we can only theorize about as of now, but as for the third, it doesn't matter if it's wanted, we seem to be getting it either way. There has been a horrific controversy going on in the gaming community as of recently. To sum it up, the game engine Unity, which has housed most likely some of your favorite games, has become extremely money hungry. The people behind it have changed their policy to where any person who uses Unity to develop their games in will now be charged a certain amount of money per player install once the game they have made is released. Whereas before, developers would have to pay a yearly subscription fee for use of the engine only. This has caused countless companies to state that they will be separating from Unity for any future releases, including the infamous legend of a man himself, Gary Newman, the creator of Garry's Mod, s&box, and of course, Rust, stating in a forum post on garry.net that they will, unlike most, not be leaving because of how much the cost is. They are more than willing to pay, rather that this decision Unity has made, facepunch and Garry never agreed to and were not warned was coming. He then goes on about the broken trust Unity as a company has bestowed upon them, takes accountability for his own mistakes in the matter, and wraps it all up with the bombshell of a statement: let's not make the same mistake again. Rust 2 definitely won't be a Unity game. Usually when it comes to game sequels though, we receive them for games that have a pre-existing story that a continuation in the series can, well, continue on from or display what resulted from the previous in. When it comes to multiplayer-based games with zero official story like Rust, things start to become a little more foggy on the basis of if it is possible to have a sequel or not. You see many other games of the same manner attempt at making these so-called follow-ups in ways that consist of just updating graphics and changing a few core mechanics, then slapping a 2 in the title like that is the reality of the product they are providing. When really, even though these can be massive changes to how the game may be played in some cases, these additions cannot equate to a true sequel in my opinion. A true sequel for a multiplayer game like Rust would have to be an entire change of almost everything in the game, offering a brand new experience all around, as any items, mechanics, or graphical improvements could all just be classified under any normal update. So, is it possible for Rust to do that? And what would that look like? Let's start with the setting. Rust itself has a date that it takes place on if you ask what day, month, and year it is in the console of the game. It is said to be endlessly taking place on May 5th, 2024. Which I think is interesting to look at, as this date has remained in the console ever since the full official release, meaning maybe all along they have been planning a big build-up event or something in general to happen on this day once we reach it in real life, long before even the Unity situation. When you think about the updates that are slowly being added over time also, it makes perfect sense that a drastic change could come very soon. The addition of the nuclear missile silo especially, seemingly having been sort of a lackluster new monument only bringing us a new card looting spot, may show its full use come spring of next year, wiping us all off of the planet we currently inhabit. Also, you're probably wondering, well, where do we inhabit? Where are we in the universe? We are currently on Earth. There are constellations matching ours in the sky, varying biomes, yes, but all of which we have and are inhabitable are wildlife, cars, and languages. Everything points to us being on our home. So, two things may happen. We may be forced to move to a different area of the world if the missile is of small radius, or if it is large, we may have to proceed into the endless void that lies above, attempting to inhabit one of the neighboring planets in the Milky Way. We already have somewhat of an example of what this could look like on the modded server Mars by Project Nova. A biodome, hover bikes, the whole shebang. And even if we just move on to a different part of the Earth, what's to say that they don't get to work on finishing those rockets to still give us access to our solar system anyways? As of now, the only things we really know are where we are and what moment of time we are in. Other than that, we have nothing more about how we got here, why we got here, etc. Although facepunch has mentioned in the past that they are going to eventually let loose on all the lore surrounding the game and creating a plotline from the ground up. And while they are alluding to many things with many different details you may be able to string together along the map, they still to this day have not even come near releasing any information regarding the story. Rust 2 may be their chance to finally do that. Instead of extending on from a previous story, just starting a new one entirely. Of course explaining what happened in the previous game, but then setting us off on new adventures to focus on while our bases get pummeled by Vladimir and his 12-year-old 25,000-hour posse. Imagine the NPCs we have now, but with voice lines, actual impact in your gameplay, and missions which span much further than just catch fish and give to me. Sort of like a Bethesda NPC type of setup. This could make boredom at any point in time disappear. Instead, all would be coaxed into wanting to go out and do these said missions with glee, when maybe they don't want to be continuously killed anymore, hitting big monuments, or progressing like how we only can now. It would help shift the focus from being completely PvP hectic multiplayer feeling all of the time, instead bringing out some of the game's fantastic survival, calm, PvE type of potential it has into the limelight much more. Speaking of PvE, I would love to see the addition of more animals like rabbits, birds, turtles, things like that. And if they added actual functionality to cooking rather than just tossing meat in a fire and calling that good enough. It would be great to see the electric furnace stovetop, for example, being able to be used, for instance, pots and pans. I want to be able to make stews and boil foods and whatever else. I think the area that Rust is lacking a lot in now would have to be the actual survival part of it. There is never any time where you would rather just play completely alone rather than in multiplayer as mentioned, and I don't think that should be the case. I think you should want to play both PvP and PvE the same amount, with both having so much to offer in their own ways. Rust, in my opinion, needs to take some strides to become more like Sons of the Forest or DayZ in complexity. And maybe even have that story mode be its own campaign mode, completely separate from the multiplayer, giving them the full creative freedom to craft up any kind of story they may want without bringing any detriment to the people who just want to play the normal Rust gameplay we have all grown to know and love. As for the normal multiplayer mode, give us tons of new monuments, tons of new guns, and completely new ways to traverse the land. Like a P90 or a hunting rifle of some sort. Bikes, skateboards. Make it so we can visit places like abandoned malls or something, sort of like a Tarkov type of location. Just keep innovating, keep being even more creative, because even though the Rust community loves to complain, everything that has been added recently has been a positive, and the amount of support that Rust receives is bar none. The devotion, dedication, and passion put into developing this game does not get appreciated enough. It could be so much worse. We could never get updates. We could never have new things to experiment with, but yet, we do. If they were going to change everything though, it would have to be in its own title. Do not replace the original Rust with Rust 2. Give the players an option of which they would like to play, and have them both provide different highs and lows separately. Really, I could go on for hours skepticizing and theorizing about what could come and what couldn't, as well as what should and what shouldn't. But sadly, I feel as though none of this is going to amount to anything, as the route they will most likely take won't even measure up to be an actual sequel deserving of the 2 in the title. The announcement of Rust 2 was most likely just made so people would know that they are working on getting the original game off of Unity as soon as possible, not that they are working on an entirely new game. But if they were, what would you like to see them add? Let me know, and let me know how you feel about the current game and the direction they are taking that in. I would be more than happy to converse.